Hello everyone, I, Alka Batra, Faculty MCA Department, Tecnia Institute of Advanced Studies, welcomes you all. Today I am going to share some information about ASP.NET. But before proceeding for ASP.NET, it is essential to know something about web technology, as web technology is the establishment and use of mechanism that makes it possible for different computers to communicate and share resources. Web technologies are infrastructural building blocks of any effective computer network like local area network, metropolitan area network or wide area network. According to Microsoft, there are various web technologies that are used nowadays. Some of these technologies are markup languages like HTML, CSS, XML, programming languages like Perl, C#, Java, etc. Some other web servers and server technologies which facilitate request handling on a network where different users have to share some resources and communicate with one another. There are other technologies like database handling, as handling database on network is very important for sharing information. So it is very crucial for any web technology to store data and information so that we can transfer it on computer network as and whenever required. Other than that, there are various business applications which are used for specific tasks provided on network. In short, we can say that web technology provides a platform for effective communication among different users and devices on a computer network. Now, what is ASP.NET? ASP.NET is a server-side web application framework designed for web development and produce dynamic web pages. It was developed by Microsoft to allow programmers to build dynamic websites, web applications and web services. Before proceeding, it is also important to know what is the difference between static and dynamic pages. As I said that ASP.NET is used for creating dynamic web pages. So what is the difference between static and dynamic web pages? Static pages are also known as flat pages. That means a web page in which all the information and material is presented before users as it is and exactly stored. Static web pages show same information and data to all the users. Static web pages are useful for that material and content that are rarely need to be revised or updated. Like we want to share some information, we want to display some information, only that kind of information is used on static web pages. Now, what are dynamic web pages? In today's world, most of the web pages are dynamic web pages. So what is a dynamic web page? It is a kind of page which each time shows different content and material to its viewers whenever visited by users. It randomly changes according to time, accessing and interaction by the users. Client-side scripting and server-side scripting. There are two kinds of dynamic pages. In client-side scripting, web pages changes according to our action on web pages. R means users, according to users' action on web pages. In this system, we can download the content and we can also modify it and modify the same content to the web page, to the website again. That means we can again upload the content after modifying it. Whereas in case of server-side scripting, web pages changes whenever a web page is loaded. For example, whenever we are working on login pages, sign-up pages, application and submission forums, we are inquiring about something, or whenever we are using some websites like shopping carts, etc. In that case of web pages, in that type of web pages, we are using server-side scripting which require to load a page on server side. Dynamic web pages are created by the using different internet languages like PHP, ASP, JSP and various languages used under .NET. ASP.NET is built on CLR. CLR is known as Common Language Runtime, which allow programmers to write ASP.NET code using any supported .NET language. Now, there are various characteristics on the basis of which we can use ASP.NET for creating various applications. These characteristics are: number one, ASP.NET web pages, officially known as web forms, and they are the main building blocks for application development. These web forms are contained in files having extension .axpx. These files typically contains static markup language, also known as XHTML, that is almost similar to your HTML language, which is also a markup language. That means we can say that XHTML is an extension of HTML that allows to work on basic HTML and also the functionality that is required in ASP.NET. This markup language also defines server-side web controls and user control static text that also remain in the .aspx page. Dynamic code is also written in these web pages, in these ASP.NET web pages. This dynamic code will be written in a special block in any backend programming language, like we are using .cs, we are using .vb, or we can use .fs. These are the various languages that we can use in .NET, because .NET provide a platform for number of languages, so we can create a backend code, or you can say dynamic code, in any of the language. So in that case, the dynamic code stored in .aspx the language used according to the selection. That means if I am using .cs file, if I am using chash as a backend language, in that case the dynamic code will be stored in .aspx.cs file. ASP.NET is a part of Microsoft .NET platform. It is used mainly for web development, where I have already said that the front end designing will be done using HTML or XML, or XML or XHTML or various other languages, but the backend code will be done, or the dynamic part will be done using the different Microsoft .NET languages. ASP.NET applications are compiled codes written using extensible and reusable components or objects present in .NET framework. These codes can use the entire hierarchy of classes in .NET framework. These application codes could be written in chash, VB.NET, JScript, JHash, or any other language provided in .NET. There are around 10 or more than 10 languages in .NET that we can use for front-end and back-end designing. ASP.NET is used to produce interactive, data-driven web application over the internet that consist of large number of controls like text boxes, buttons, labels for assembling, configuring, and manipulating code to create HTML pages. ASP.NET framework helps to store information in various states. These states are: number one, page state; number two, session state. What is page state? A page state is the state of the client. State of client means the content of various input fields in the web form. That means when we are opening a web page, we are loading a web page on our machine. In that case, the content that we have input in that particular page is the page state at that particular time. That we can store in case of ASP.NET. Second is the session state. It is a collective obtained from various pages. The user visited and worked, like I log in the website, I log in the web page. So that login information, that all stored in a session state. The overall session state is consists of number of information that we have provided at the time of session start till session end. The ASP.NET runtime carries the page state to and from the server across page requests while generating the ASP.NET runtime codes and incorporates the state of the server-side component in hidden fields. The server becomes aware of the overall application state and operates in the two-tiered connected way. Now, what is ASP.NET component model? ASP.NET component model are the various building blocks of ASP.NET pages. That means the contents, the information that we are placing on ASP.NET pages. These are described as, you can say that it is categorized as two. One is your server-side counterparts, which are your almost all HTML elements or tags that generate automatically whenever we put some server controls on the web page. These server controls can be divided into different categories. These server controls develop complex user interface. For example, if we put a calendar control or a grid view control on web page, so that control is known as server control. ASP.NET is a technology which works on .NET framework that contains all web-related functionalities. The .NET framework is made of object-oriented hierarchy. What is object-oriented hierarchy? Object-oriented hierarchy means everything that we are using in ASP.NET is a class, and whenever we are using something, that means we are creating object of that class. So everything we are putting on a web page is a object of that particular class. In ASP.NET web application, as it is made up of number of pages, whenever a user requests ASP.NET page, the IIS, that is Internet Information Server, it delegates the processing of the page to the ASP.NET runtime system. This runtime system transforms the ASPX page into an instance of a class. Instance of a class means object. That is why I said in previous point that it is object-oriented hierarchy, which inherits from the base class page. Page is the base class of any ASP.NET page that is already given in .NET framework. Whenever we are using any page, that means we are creating the instance of that particular page class. Therefore, each ASP.NET page is an object and all of its components are the server-side controls. They are also known as objects, and these objects require server for their execution. Now next is .NET components and their description. .NET is a platform provided by Microsoft for executing various applications using various different languages in some common way. So for different applications to work in a common way, there are some basic components that are provided in .NET that is common for all the languages we are using, like C#, like VB, like Java, that ever is provided in .NET, that is following the same component procedure. These components are, number one, Common Language Runtime, that is also in short known as CLR. CLR is the major part of .NET as it performs memory management, exception handling, debugging, security checking, threading, execution, code safety, verification and compilation. These codes which are directly managed by the CLR are called managed code. When the managed code is compiled, the compiler converts the source code into CPU independent intermediate language code known as IL. A just-in-time compiler compiles the IL code into native code, which is CPU specific. Native code is actually the code that is made as per the selected language. Before native code, the compiled code is a general code that can be further converted into any of the language code. Like if I am using C#, then finally the code created, that is a native code, is in C#. Second is .NET Framework Class Library. It contains a huge library of reusable types, classes, interfaces, structures and enumerated values, which are collectively called types. Next is Common Language Specification. It contains the specification for the .NET supported languages and implementation of various other languages. These common language specification means the basic specification for representation of data in a language is common for all the languages provided in .NET. A common type system provides guidelines for declaring, using and managing different data types at runtime and cross-language communication. Cross-language communication means if we create a particular web page or particular application in one language, then using .NET we can easily convert that language into any other language, as the type system is common for all the applications in .NET. Next is metadata and assemblies. Metadata is the binary information describing about the program that is either stored in a portable execution file or in the memory. Metadata basically means data about data. Assembly is a logical unit that consists of assembly manifest, type metadata, IL code and set of resources like image files, etc. Another component is Windows form that contains the graphical representation of any window displayed in the application. If I am creating a window application, in that case the basic structure of the window that is contained in Windows form. Whenever we are working on .NET, we can create two type of applications, like we can create window application or we can create console applications. Next is ADO.NET. It is a technology used for working with data and databases. If I want to connect a database with my application, in that case I have to use this ADO.NET technology, which allows me to work with various types of databases, like I can use XML, I can use DBA, I can use Oracle, I can use MS Access, any kind of database I can use in ADO.NET. For working with every type of database, there are different methods, there are different commands that we can use in ADO.NET. One more thing that is available in upgraded .NET versions, that is WPF or Windows Presentation Foundation. Using Windows Presentation Foundation, we can include graphics, animation, documents, media files and other this kind of interfaces in our applications that is used more interactively with the user interface and the business logic. We can work with various database technologies, but there is a simplest method that is now provided in .NET, that is LINQ. LINQ is also a way of using databases in .NET which imparts data querying capabilities to .NET languages with a simple syntax similar to your SQL. This LINQ is more you can say it is more comfortable to use LINQ instead of databases, as the syntax used is almost similar to SQL, but it is smaller than the you can say the steps used in database handling. Now, what is the ASP.NET environment? As I told you that we are using ASP.NET for creating web applications, websites, web pages, these are the part of web applications. So, in case of ASP.NET applications, there are number of files that are created in a particular application. These files are web content files having extension .aspx, source files, you can say if I am using backend C hash, then it is .cs, assembly files that are created after execution, that is .dll and .exe files, data source files. For example, if I am using SQL server that is inbuilt in ASP.NET, so that file extension is .mdb or any other data source we are using. Other than that, there are references, icons, user controls, miscellaneous files, folders, and there are so many files that can create in a single ASP.NET application. Whenever we are creating an ASP.NET application, these files are stored in a solution, and this solution may contain one or more projects. So, in this way, we can create a web application and we can process that web application. In this manner, our applications are created and used by ASP.NET. Now, in my further lecture, I will tell you about the how to create an ASP.NET application, how we can execute it, and how we can upload it on internet. Thank you.